A mother's voice whispers in the dark, "Hold my hand, don't let go." They didn't just sell people, they sold relationships, they sold names, they sold memories, they sold children. And when the hammer fell, it wasn't just a transaction, it was psychological warfare. In cities like New Orleans, in markets near Charleston, in the shadow of Wall Street, in New York City, families stood on platforms and watched their world split apart forever. This wasn't accidental cruelty, it was strategy. Tonight, we're not just telling the story of slavery, we're exposing the weapon they used most effectively. Separation. The slave auction was theater. Buyers gathered like spectators, sellers polished their inventory. Families were ordered to stand still. Children were told not to cry. Fathers were forced to appear strong, but inside, terror. One of the largest slave markets in America stood at St. Louis Hotel in New Orleans. Here, enslaved men, women, and children were displayed in courtyards. They were inspected like livestock, teeth checked, muscles squeezed, scars examined, but what buyers truly valued was something colder. If you bought the mother, you got future children. If you bought the child, you controlled the mother's obedience. Because nothing controls a human being more effectively than fear for their family. Slaveholders understood something modern psychologists now confirm: isolation weakens resistance. Enslavers intentionally separated husbands and wives, sold sons away from fathers, sent daughters to different plantations. Historian Frederick Douglass recalled how enslaved children were often taken from their mothers before forming lasting bonds. Why? Because attachment creates strength, and strength creates rebellion. By the time of the domestic slave trade expansion after 1808, over 1 million enslaved people were forcibly relocated within the United States. Many marched from the Upper South to cotton plantations in Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana. This internal trade shattered families on an industrial scale. It was not random, it was calculated destabilization. Imagine being 6 years old. You don't understand economics. You don't understand ownership. You don't understand why your mother's hands are shaking. You only understand that someone is pulling you away. In narratives collected during the 1930s, formerly enslaved people described the auction block as the most traumatic moment of their lives. Some never saw their parents again. Some spent decades searching. Some stopped speaking entirely. Psychologists today call it attachment trauma. Back then, it was simply survival. Parents whispered instructions. Remember your name. Remember where you're from. Don't forget me. Because memory was resistance. Masculinity was weaponized. Enslaved fathers were forced to watch. If they resisted, they were whipped. If they protested, they were sold first. The system deliberately stripped men of the ability to protect their families. And that powerlessness was the point. A broken father meant a frightened community. A frightened community meant control. Family separation didn't end when the auction ended. It echoed after emancipation. Thousands placed ads in newspapers searching for lost relatives. One famous example comes from ads printed in the Christian Recorder. Looking for my mother, Eliza, sold in 1852. Searching for my son, taken to Georgia. These ads ran for decades. Some reunions happened, most did not. Generational trauma doesn't disappear with freedom papers. It embeds itself. In silence, in grief passed down without words. Physical chains restrain the body. Family separation restrains the mind. If you know your child can be sold tomorrow, you think twice before rebelling today. It was the ultimate hostage system, and it required no constant violence, just the threat. And that threat hung over every enslaved person in America. They tried to erase bloodlines, they tried to dissolve families, they tried to make people forget who they belonged to. But here's what they didn't expect. Stories survive, names survive, blood remembers. From auction blocks in Richmond to plantations along the Mississippi River, love survived. And every time this story is told, the separation fails again. They could separate bodies, but they could not separate history.